All right, I'm just going live here because I'm already hungry. Ain't no hockey to watch tonight.
There's several hockey games.
Ain't no Rangers to watch tonight.
Oh.
Is there any hockey I don't want to
Tomorrow
watch?
could be the last Rangers you're ever going to watch. Oh, look, 4 series that are all tied 3-2.
Yeah.
How many of these 4 series playing tonight will end tonight, and how many will go to Game 7?
I hope they all go to Game 7.
I mean, everyone hopes that, but what do you think? 2-2, I guess, would be the easy bet, right?
Right.
I
I gotta go look at like the box scores and remove empty net goals to figure out which teams are actually like likely to end it tonight.
Let's see.
Where are the last few scores? Oh, Kings Oilers went to OT. Toronto Lightning was a 1-goal game. Hurricanes crushed the shit out of the Bruins.
Oh, yeah. I feel like Carolina will end it tonight.
Yeah. I don't think they're all actually, these are all really swingy. Like, Kings shut the Oilers out 4-0, and then the next game, they...
Edmonton is choking all over the place.
Yep.
The Kings had no business being in the playoffs, right? They're clearly the weakest playoff team.
Panthers Caps is weird, too.
The Kings, no way they can get past round 2 if they miraculously beat Edmonton.
Florida got crushed 6-1 by the the Caps.
Also choking.
Yep.
Way underperforming.
But then the next game, they beat the Caps in OT, so.
Yeah. They're still underperforming, right? They were like the best team, They had so many points in the regular season.
Yep. All right, I think we can just get started on the show. Wow, wow, wow. I'm about to hit record.
Boop, I hit it.
I have also hit it.
Hit it.
Oh, yeah, people are excited about swimming. We already got people watching, talking about swimming. Okay. Get my Chromie up. It's Thursday, May 12th, 2022. I'm Rim. Scott's yawning.
Yeah, I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, we are talking about swimming. So, I was involved in a biking incident on my way to work this morning, a minor one, but there's a
Why are you getting into biking incidents?
a minor one. But on the way home, I was not involved in any biking incidents. However, I witnessed one of the bigger bike dramas I have ever seen, like, on my commute. It was
a few. How big could it be?
It was moderately big because it kept escalating, and as I was biking home, I'd get to the next red light and encounter more of the like follow-up of this drama.
Okay.
So on the way to work, pretty straightforward. I was biking to work, and a cab cut across 2 lanes suddenly and just went straight across the bike lane, hit the front of my city bike, and then like screeched to a halt like right then. So they bonked the city bike, and there's a little dent in their hood, and I was fine. The city bike weighs 50 pounds, so I'm just sitting there. And then the cab rolls down his window, and he starts yelling at me. Like it's my fault.
So they cut across 2 lanes. So they're making a left.
They were making a left against a red light.
Not from the leftmost.
Not from the leftmost lane. And with the bike, there was one of those bike green lights saying bikes had the right of way, and the the light for left turns for cars was red.
So you bonked into the side of the cab like a T.
Like the front, like the very front.
Left. You were going straight.
I was going straight. He went left. If it had been a car, it would have been like a T-bone accident, probably. And I saw him coming, but city bikes can't stop that quick, even if you're going slow.
You could always jump off the back.
I thought about it, but he was already, like, tires were screeching. There was a little bonk and there's a little dent. So he starts to yell at me. So I just looked at him, and I kicked the side of the cab, and I put a dent in his door, and I just biked away.
Okay.
That was the end of that. Like, city bike was unharmed. But on the way home, so I'm biking. And I get passed really aggressively by this fixie guy. He whistles at me and like passes, and he's just weaving like crazy. Whatever. People like that all the time. So there's a red light up ahead, and a ton of bikers are just stopped at the red light in that tiny little narrow bike path on like First Avenue. And I'm pulling up, I'm slowing down, ready to just stop and wait for the light. And the fixie guy is stuck in this group, and he starts kind of shoving his way through the people, like he's elbowing people out of the way physically, gets his bike to the front, and then he just like runs through the red light in front of some cars and keeps going. Whatever, that happens. So light turns green. I go with all the bikers. I see up ahead, that guy is now again at the next red light, and he's clearly like trying to get through the red light. He does that bike maneuver that always annoys me, that fixie people do the most, where they don't want to run the red light directly. So they kind of turn onto the street and like the cross street, and they go down it and do a little loop and come back up the other side to just sort of skip the red light. So he does this, and on his way, his handlebar clips a scooter guy on his backpack, pulls him off his bike, and like he falls over. And the guy's like, hey. And the fixie guy turns around, flips him off, and keeps biking.
Okay.
All right. Still, that is not even worthy of being a geek, like an opening bit so far. Here's where it gets fun. So, scooter guy like gets up, dusts himself off, and light turns green. He goes off ahead. I go off ahead. And now we're just biking straight. I see the fixie guy. Then behind him is scooter guy. And behind scooter guy is me. We're just going. Scooter guy goes to the right a little bit, speeds up and gets ahead of fixie guy, and then rams him from the side. Fixie guy flips over his handlebars, goes spinning. His front tire is like bent. His phone shatters on the ground, and he's bleeding. And I stop to help him, like, dude, are you okay? He gets up, and he doesn't want to help. He's like, chase that guy. I'm going to beat the shit out of him. So I'm just like, dude, honestly, fuck you.
This is already a violent, angry dude beforehand.
So I'm just like, so I just look at him. I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm on scooter guy's side. I tell him that, and I bike off.
Right.
So then,
I mean, I'm not on either of those people's side, right?
Oh no, they're both bad people.
They're violent, aggressive people who deserve each other. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like if that dude was driving a car, he'd be a road rage dude, right?
Exactly. And I'm of the opinion with cars, road rage should be a one strike and you never drive again. Like, you are too dangerous to be in charge of a vehicle ever.
Well, I think you would be. You're definitely a borderline road rage person.
I have never in my life. Never once. Never even.
Uh-huh.
Honestly, why would you even say something like that?
Uh-huh. Why are you kicking some guy's door, putting a dent in it?
Because he was yelling at me and he almost hit me.
Yeah, well, you wave your middle finger at people all the time.
Oh, but that's New York. That's just a friendly hello.
Uh-huh. If I'm in any of those situations, I just go, I just calmly go on my way.
So so fixie guy eventually passes me because he's chasing scooter guy. And he catches up to him and tries to fight with him. And scooter guy at this point is just like he kind of shrugs and just speeds off. And they were racing, and I finally lost sight of them after they both almost got hit by a truck because they ran a red light while they were fighting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the very end of all this, there's an old guy who'd been puttering along kind of next to me the whole time on a city bike, same as me. And he pulls up next to me, and he just turns to me and says, "That was really funny." And I'm just like, kind of was. And then he laughs, and then I biked home, and here I am.
I mean, I feel like, there are definitely people in society who, for whatever reason, me not being a psychologist or anything or a psychiatrist, what the fuck do I know, right?
Well, it's like they're looking for a fight. Like they want to fight somebody.
People who are permanently or temporarily angry, and not the kind of angry that I have, where like I'm angry at an unjust society.
Yeah,
right?
And not like the sharp anger of like, say you're driving a car and you did just get T-boned by someone who ran a red light. You would justifiably be very angry about that situation.
I wouldn't be angry. I'd be like, oh my God, don't want to die.
I mean, after, like, say you're fine and it happened, I'd be angry that, well, be late to wherever I was going because somebody broke the law and assaulted me.
Well, I'd be angry at the unjust society for being car-centric, right?
I mean, of course, ban cars.
Anger already exists. I would be like, well, another example of the thing I'm already justifiably angry about, right?
Yep.
But there's the road rage kind of anger, right? You're a person who yells. You're a person who is trying to hurt other people. You're a person who will physically, yell or worse, act aggressively, in a disproportionate response to things that happen near or adjacent to you or within your vision, right? Those sort of people who behave in that way, right, certainly exist.
Yep.
In some quantity, and they act in that way some percentage of their lives that is more than average.
Well, it's two factors there. It's the disproportionate response coupled with
that way. In acting that way, those people are, harming society, right? That society is less healthy the more people are doing that, right? So
we need systemic society level interventions to try to understand this and stop it.
Yes, there needs to be something that's like, hey, even if you haven't, fucking murdered anybody or beat anyone up or anything like that, right? It's like, if you're an angry kind of person, right, who's, acting this way and causing angry scenes or, whatever, it's like, you're not a person that, should be allowed to say operate heavy machinery.
Yep. Well, there's three factors there. That's why I focus so much on road rage. This is why I focus so much on road rage with cars, because it's three factors. The factors are a disproportionate response to a situation, repeatedly having these disproportionate responses, and the disproportionate response is in the context of something like you're in control of a multi-ton death machine, or you are a cop with a gun. Because like a proportionate response, like, you see two people and they almost hit each other with their cars and they both go, fuck you, and they honk their horns and then they drive away. That's very different from someone gets cut off and then they follow someone else's car all the way home and get out screaming at them, which happens kind of often actually in society.
Yeah, I mean, there's the intersection, the T intersection at my house. They changed it, years ago to make one of the streets a two-way street, and it's very poorly designed. All kinds of accidents. One time, a car crashed into the brick wall. It was,
wow.
But I've seen some some little fender benders out there, and most of the time, you hear screech, bump, right? You look out the window and there's two people and they pull over, right? And then they get out and they go mumble, 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 insurance, 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 back in the car, right? Maybe there's a tow, but it's not common, but it does happen where one person gets out and it's like they're gonna try to fight the other person, right? And it's like that's a person who needs some kind of help, and that help should be forced upon them.
So here's where this gets interesting and tricky, and this might be
of society.
This might be a topic for another show, because unrelatedly, Emily and I have been reading.
That's a topic for a show that should have a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
We should get a guest.
Because what the fuck do we know?
Well, no, because Emily and I we've been reading a lot about road rage and those kinds of things because unrelated to all this. Well, no, because there was a bunch of studies many years ago that are starting to add up that, the lead poisoning hypothesis, people who have lead poisoning have objectively, this is a measurable effect, reduced impulse control, increased anger and violence responses just across the board in their lives.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, that's well known.
Everyone in America who lived in America, especially in cities or near roads, older than us, has some amount of lead poisoning. We're one of the first generations when the lead atmosphere levels were lower.
I mean, we might have lead poisoning from all those painted glass cups.
But two, deficiencies in B vitamins, not supplement nonsense, but more like your diet is so bad that you are not getting enough B vitamins, is also very strongly correlated to violence and poor impulse control. And third, and this was the tricky one, there is some emerging evidence that if you look at broad populations, there is one cluster of genes. And it's not that people who have that cluster of gene variants are going to be violent, but a very high percentage of people who are in prison for violence have that gene cluster compared to other populations.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very thorny and complex conversation around all those things.
There could be a causation correlation problem too.
Yep.
Right? Something about prisons causes people's genes to change. Who knows?
Yep. There's so this even tracked kids in school who are
the people who putting people in prison tend to put black people in prison.
Oh no, it does. So these gene clusters do not correlate to any physical demographics. Not like age. They correlate differently between men and women, so far, but not like black people versus white people versus Asian people, etc. But it's also
it could be, low income people tend to make babies with low income people, and in their neighborhoods are, who know.
Oh yeah, but what this all leads to is, suppose we discover that some percentage of
that's who police go after. Police don't
exactly
put rich people in jail that often.
So suppose we discover that there is an environmental cause for some subset of violence in society. In that case,
say whoever created that environmental problem
is a murderer.
Company polluted. The polluting company should be held responsible.
But also,
crimes.
The people who were impacted by that, where their crimes were likely caused by that, are arguably less culpable in the crimes they committed.
Yes, the company that poisoned them should be to take that culpability.
Exactly.
And in fact, the people who were poisoned should sue and get right.
All right, I guess we get into the
you poison you if I came along and I poisoned you, right, with a poison that makes you rob a bank, right, on your own.
Ooh, that sounds like a really good K-drama to make. Poison that makes you rob banks.
Right, it's like I poison you, and then you rob a bank. Poison makes you rob a bank. It's one of those mind-controlling fungus poisons.
Yeah, then I'm not guilty of anything.
Parasite. And it's like, well, Rim wouldn't have robbed the bank if it wasn't for the parasite, so the parasite did it. But Scott knowingly had the parasite and then knowingly put it on the rim.
Yep.
Or even if I negligently produced the parasite and put it on the rim, right? It's like I'm responsible for the bank robbery in some large sense, more so than Rim is.
Right.
Right.
All right, so in the news, there is actually, so remember when COVID first hit, like those early terrifying days, and there was a meat shortage during that. Like there was a meat shortage, it was in the news, the government, like the federal government.
Shortage.
Well, so that's the news. And the federal government actually took a bunch of measures to like let meatpacking companies continue to operate despite the risk of COVID and reduce safety controls and all this stuff to like get the meat supply going again.
Bad choices.
So it turns out this is actually pretty breaking news from today. There's a really big expose in Rolling Stone. We now know there was never a meat shortage at any point. All of that was fabricated by the meat industry, and they paid lobbyists to bribe the U.S. federal government and Trump and the Republicans to basically use this as an excuse to get rid of a bunch of OSHA controls and avoid all the COVID controls and kill a whole bunch of their very low-income workers. There was never at any point a meat shortage during COVID. That was a Republican lie.
Yeah, of course. No surprises.
Yep. And this article is a pretty in-depth expose of all of this. There's going to be hearings now. There's a House Select Committee that is like, there might be criminal charges. This is all unfolding right now.
I mean, the problem is, again, how many times can we talk about this, right? If a company commits a crime, basically nothing happens, right? It's like, you need to have a situation where if companies commit crimes, the CEOs are the ones who, it's like I'm all for abolishing prisons, but if we're going to have prisons, they should be filled with CEOs and not with someone who robbed a convenience store for a pack of gum, right?
Yep.
Or someone who robbed the drugstore for baby formula because there's a baby formula shortage that's real and their baby is starving.
Oh, I did. That baby formula shortage. I don't think we have time to talk about it tonight. And also, if you just heard about that from us, that's just a shame. God damn.
You're not reading news if you heard about it here first.
Yeah, but, that baby formula shortage is a big fucking deal, and a lot of kids are going to die. This is actually a huge crisis.
Well, it's been a crisis for a while. Even before the current shortage, it's like baby formula was real expensive and they weren't making enough of it.
But now it's way like there isn't enough, and there won't be for a long time now.
Anyway, the point is that you could be a CEO and have a company that steals $1 billion and basically, not face any really life-changing consequences. And you can be, a poor homeless person and rob a drugstore for $20 and at least spend a night in jail or something.
Well, right? The salient line I've always seen,
if not worse,
the line that gets repeated, like the most succinct point is, if a crime has a punishment that is a fine, then that is actually simply a price tag.
Yeah.
Like, if you or I speed in a car, we could both pay any speeding ticket, and it wouldn't even hurt us that much. But if a poor person gets pulled over for even speeding a little bit, they're fucked.
No, we don't scale. Some countries scale it. We don't.
We should.
But even scaling it is not solving the problem. Right?
Nope. Well, the problem is cars, but I digress there. So you got some news?
Yeah. So I talked about this in the GeekNights forum. It's a K-pop news, but it's actually not entirely K-pop news. This is girl Alexa, right? That's, I think her real name is, I could look it up on Wikipedia. You can too, so go ahead. But her stage name is Alexa. And she's from Oklahoma. So she's a Korean American from Oklahoma. And you can read the whole story online by circumstances, right? Similar to like the otaku dream that many nerds lived of, like, going to Japan and, making animation like Stevie B or whatever, right?
Yeah.
She ended up in Korea, right? As a K-pop star in Korea, despite being from Oklahoma. And that, and was she super popular? Not really, right? It's like she was on, one of those competition shows and she got almost no screen time and did not win. And then a company believed in her because she was quite talented and invested money in her and produced music for her. And she was on the music shows. She didn't have a ton of fans, right? But she wasn't like, absolute no one, right? She was sort of, I'd say, if you had to rank K-pop popularity from like one being someone you never heard of and had to disband immediately with no money, and 5 being BTS, she might be like a 2 or a 2.5, right? But she was, people who really followed K-pop a lot could see her, right? And recognize her, and especially in the English-speaking K-pop community, the international K-pop community, knew her because she could speak fucking English, right? Because she was from Oklahoma. So her content online was very accessible to people around the world. They didn't have to wait for it to be subtitled or anything like that, right? So she was getting around, and somehow in the United States, they decided, like the United States always foolishly does, to try to take something that was popular in another country and remake it in an American way and make it worse, right? And, they did that with the Masked Singer show, right, which is a Korean show. And they did it with Eurovision, right? And so they remade Eurovision in the U.S. They called it American Song Contest, and they had a competitor from each state. And thanks to Alexa's agent, and I guess their quality business skills, they got her to be the representative from Oklahoma. So this K-pop girl basically is representing Oklahoma. Really, in musically, nothing Oklahoman. So you would expect a country music, right, from Oklahoma, right? Nothing country going on here whatsoever. So it turns out that show was not a popular show, right? It was not killing it in the ratings exactly, right? The Masked Singer thing, I think, ended up being more popular than this one, right? Regardless, she won because why? A bunch of K-pop people voted for her. That's why.
That's the power of K-pop.
Right. Even if they weren't like #1 Alexa fans, like, she's their favorite person ever. It's like there's any K-pop related person could have gone into this contest, and as long as there was no other more popular K-pop person, the K-pop community that spoke English was going to go and vote for them, right? And so she won the whole thing, right? And in fact, I think she broke it was funny. I think she broke the trophy when she won it. It was very funny. But it's just really interesting, right, to point out how, right, there's many negative things to say about K-pop. We can go on all day about that, but this is an example of one of K-pop's positive traits, the industry's positive traits, in that sort of positive trait, right, in that they just want to be successful and make money, right? And because it's an entertainment business, right, they don't give a shit if you're from Oklahoma, right?
Yep.
It's like, if there's a way that they can make money on you, it's like, come on in, right? They'll accept. They got K-pop people coming from, all kinds of countries: Thailand, Japan, Korea, U.S. Right? It's like they don't give it. You don't have to be Korean, right? It's like you don't speak Korean. All right, just well, you learn enough words to go on TV, right? As long as you can sing and dance, all right. You learn to sing the song, and you don't know any other words. Great. It's like just come on. I think Alexa speaks better Korean than that. I'm not, I've seen her speak Korean on TV, right? And I guess I don't speak Korean, so I can't judge, but she's not someone who learned just a few words, right? She's been living there like 4 years or something. There was like a video, like, she like got to see her parents after like so many years, right? Not seeing them. But yeah, it's like, the accepting of anyone, and then also, at least the international fans, right, of K-pop, accepting anyone, right, is cool to see. And I think, this, even though the show was not popular, I like some of her music, right? She's talented, and I'm sure that, she'll, just having this thing on her resume, right, is probably going to help her become, she's definitely upgraded from, 2-star to like, at least 3 or 3.5 star here out of the 5. So that's something. It's an interesting story, right? Not the usual, just normal K-pop stories.
Yep. So in another actually breaking news, we have learned that, Dune, the Dune movie, that was actually pretty good. Part 2 is, of course, coming. It was announced, and this is...
The newer Dune movie, not the old one.
Yeah. It was announced that the Emperor...
Who was not in, the spoiler, who did not make an appearance in Dune Part 1.
Yep. In Dune Part 2, the Emperor is going to be played, no joke, by Christopher Walken, which is the kind of casting that nerds always say, oh, they should make Nick Cage and Christopher Walken play. It's that kind of casting, but that is actually the casting.
Yep, it's not a joke. It's not a prank. It's not April Fool's. That really is who's going to play the Emperor. On the one hand, I don't, my vision of the Emperor, having read Dune, see book club book episode about Dune, right, is not a Christopher Walken type character, right? It's a serious, dark, dude, right? Like, like a Roman emperor, right? It's, only not insane.
Yep.
And Christopher Walken, he has that, slight, goofy quirkiness to him.
Of course, he can play it pretty, I remember in Suicide Kings, he's a little more restrained and terrifying.
Right, he is, but he has that sort of, somewhat, easygoing humorousness and not the completely, seriousness at all times. But, it's still, even so, right, that doesn't matter, right? It's not about what I imagine the Dune Emperor to be like, right? It's not like the Dune Emperor lasts that long anyways. But this news, though, usually I don't give a shit about, casting news has come out all the time. I usually don't give a shit. This actually makes me really want to see. I mean, I already was going to see it, but this really makes me want to see.
Because what are the possibilities?
More.
Christopher Walken is
to see it already.
Either he is unexpected in the way he plays this character and it's amazing, or he's expected in the way we think he'll play this character, and I feel like that will still be amazing.
I don't see any way that this is bad.
No.
This can only be, they're basically just announced. Let me translate the announcement, right? It's basically like, Dune Part 2 is coming. You were already going to see it. And the news today is it's going to be more entertaining than you already thought it was going to be.
Yep. That's the news.
Raise your expectation without concern. It's like, okay, I have raised my expectation without concern.
But also, we know for a fact that he knows how to walk without rhythm so as to not attract the worm.
I don't think does the Emperor ever actually have to walk without rhythm?
I don't think the Emperor ever actually has to walk.
That you're thinking of the hard.
No, I don't think. I feel like the Emperor might just get wheeled around too. So what?
The Emperor was a guy who could walk.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I feel like he's the kind of person who had servants to walk for him if he wanted to.
Anyway,
in one last little news, I got 2 minor convention newses that are funny because they are both 2 sides of the same problem that happens with a lot of nerdy conventions, in that the kinds of people who attend a lot of nerdy conventions bring their own unique problems and challenges to the venues that may normally be used to regular, boring people doing regular, normal hotel stuff.
I mean, that's true, right? Most of the conventions and conferences are really quiet. You know, they're usually companies with vendors and those sorts of things.
Like, this is the reason the escalators break at every convention, because no convention is ready for nerd conventions.
Right. Or they're academic conferences, right? But there are conventions and conferences that are way, way, way worse.
Oh, yeah, like the Young Republicans.
The nerd ones.
The Young Republicans convention is the worst one, as far as I can tell.
Anything that has a frat-like atmosphere, right, is going to be, if we know this from talking to many hotel convention center staff over decade plus time.
Go find old Geek Nights episodes about Katsucon. We interviewed like random maintenance people, and they shared some terrifying shit, mostly about the young
concierges. You talk to hotel housekeeping, right? You talk to these people, and security guards at convention centers, things like that, and you learn stuff. And it's like, yes, the worst absolute conventions are the ones that have some sort of frat-like atmosphere, bunch of white boys getting drunk, being bad. Those are the ones that destroy everything.
Yep,
right?
nerd conventions have a different kind of problem.
Right. The nerds are better than that, but a problem compared to the normal quiet business things. Right?
So first, Colossal Con.
I've heard of that. I don't know what kind of con it is, but I've heard of it.
It's one of those generic cons as far as I can
I
tell.
don't know where it is either.
We know a bunch of people who go. It's at the Kalahari Resort. I don't actually know what state that's in. I mean, it's not a con we'll go to. Pretty sure they just announced they're not masking or something, but that's not what I'm talking about. They sent a warning to the guests of Colossal Con about a potentially disruptive event that will be held in the convention center during those dates. But the event they warned the Colossal Con attendees about is Colossal Con.
What?
So they put a warning out. I'm going to read the exact warning.
Put the warning out.
The hotel, the convention center hotel, sent a warning to the regular guests saying, warning, a note. If you choose to stay, specifically anytime during June 1st through 5th, there is a unique private event throughout the resort called Colossal Con, consisting of anime, gaming, and Japanese culture. In an effort to accommodate our non-convention guests, we are enforcing a PG-13 rule. Nudity, adult behaviors are banned, all these rules. Under 18 people are not allowed to go anywhere near the water park, all these rules. And this seems like it was written aimed at regular people who happen to be staying at this resort during Colossal Con.
So they probably sent it to everyone who had a room booked that wasn't in the room block.
But they also sent it to the room block for Colossal Con.
Okay, so some hotel person who sends an email and it isn't some technologically advanced person just, sent the email out, not thinking too hard about it, not understanding or whatever.
But what they have actually banned is they're saying the entire resort has to be a PG-13 rule, and it says specifically nudity and adult behaviors are banned in guest rooms, private spaces.
How can you even do that?
I have no idea.
Are they cameras in all the guest spaces? Don't stay at this hotel.
Yep. So, meanwhile, there's another convention, the Motor City FurryCon. And they had to post.
Well, I wonder where that is.
There are actually a huge number of furry conventions and gaming conventions in Michigan that basically nobody has heard of outside of Michigan. It might be the densest, other than North Jersey, it might be one of the densest places for like very small nerdy gaming conventions.
Anyway.
So they sent a letter that has gone out in the past from many other conventions, many kinds of conventions, but they sent a very, very long letter that was like, look, everyone who went to our con last year, you got to stop leaving vomit everywhere. You got to stop leaving diapers everywhere. You got to stop sleeping in your cars. They're going to ban us if you don't stop this shit. And it is a very long and terrifying letter detailing everything that the attendees of this convention did that are pushing the hotel to the point of possibly not letting them ever return. You can read it if you enjoy. I enjoy convention drama just because it's like watching a car wreck in the distance. It's just fascinating to behold. But anyway, things of the day. So T-Pain seems like a stand-up dude. He he succeeded in opening a restaurant. He's really excited about it. It's a cool thing.
He's got enough money. He can buy a restaurant and just pay people to run it.
If I like, it'd be pretty fun to run a restaurant.
Listen, if I had, there's a restaurant. Staten Island is the worst place. We've talked about this at length. But in Staten Island, there is, right? Everyone has this idea. They don't realize it actually exists. It's existed for many years. There is a restaurant in Staten Island completely operated only by grandmas of various nations who make grandma food.
How good is that?
It's really in Staten. There's a real place, right? So it's like, you want to open one of those? Well, you got to do all the work of running a restaurant, or just be wealthy enough to pay rent and buy food and have grandmas do all the work. It's
I mean, I would love to just retire and be like, look, I run a nerdy bar. Like, that would be a really fun thing to do if that were somehow a sustainable, achievable thing that would survive capitalism.
I would run a nerdy Jewish deli.
Oh, yeah. But T-Pain did it. He's opening his restaurant. He's really excited about it. But he posted a photo to Twitter.
Where is it? Can we go? Is it New York?
I don't actually know. But
California.
So so I have the key to it. We could break in. We could just open the door.
I'm sure he's changed the locks by now.
He hasn't yet. So the story is, when he tweeted about the fact that he's opening the restaurant, he posted a picture. He was holding up the key, like the master key to the building. Now, nerds always, especially lockpicking nerds, always like to point out whenever someone does this, hey, someone's going to copy your key. You're fucked. And that is true. But my thing of the day is a video that Deviant Olam, a guy who's famous in the lockpicking community. He's the guy who did those elevator hacking talks at conventions over the years. This video is only 6 minutes long, and he actually does make T-Pain's key directly, but he shows you exactly, step by step, what it takes to do that. Like, every step of the way.
Did he go to T-Pain's restaurant and open the door?
He did not, and he advised.
That would make an S-tier video.
So at the end,
go open the door, just like, surreptitiously. I'm saying, like, go there, with T-Pain in the video and be like, hey, T-Pain, watch this. Right?
Yep. So he posted this video, and T-Pain,
and that video would help T-Pain, right? Recruit him to educate the people, to not take photos of keys.
So it looks like T-Pain saw this video, because he had a follow-up thread where he was like, yeah, I understand. All right, what are you going to do? Break in and steal the bar stools that we're throwing away? We're renovating the place. Like, I'm going to change the locks, guys. I'm not stupid.
I'm just saying, at least T-Pain understands you shouldn't take photos of keys now.
Yep.
Right?
So the two things I will say is, one, watch the video, because you know what tools you need to do this yourself? Websites.
A blank key. Something to grind away at it.
Oh, you can just buy a key punch.
Like
they're cheap.
A piece of paper and
No, it's way easier than that. Yeah, he actually, so Deviant even shares these things. He just takes the photo into Photoshop, and he has templates with vector graphics of lines for different kinds of keys. He just lines it up on the photo. It's really straightforward. Like,
oh, okay, yeah, and then he prints it out.
Yep. You follow
instead of the pencil paper.
No, you don't print it out, Scott, because keys are just passwords from the photo. And these
has the numbers.
Yeah, and the templates, it's really easy to figure out the numbers, which are basically the password. Because a key, like a residential key, is actually just a 5 or 6 digit numerical password. Your key to your house is literally just a basic ass password.
Yeah.
That's why lockpicking is so easy, because they're just really simple passwords.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever post a photo of your keys, that is the equivalent of typing your password into Twitter and just hitting send.
If you find someone's keys and you want to share a photo of the keys to be like, hey, who lost their keys? Come and get them. You should hold your fist over the bottom, the spiky part of the keys, and just show the keychains and the tops of the keys that, where the ring is. And that would be enough for someone to identify, that's my keychain, those are my keys, without revealing their actual keys.
Yup. God, if I lost my keychain, that would be a big fucking problem, because my YubiKey is on the keychain.
I have 2 YubiKeys.
I have one, but then I have the backup codes for everything. But anyway,
backup codes for everything also. But I put everything I put on one YubiKey, I also put on the other YubiKey.
I thought about doing that, and then I didn't. I probably should. Next time I do the refresh, I probably will. But that's why I made this my thing of the day, because a lot of people talk about copying keys from photos. This video If you watch this video, you will literally be able to do it. It is so easy and so simple. All you need is Photoshop or something that's Photoshop enough. I don't think you could do it in the GIMP that easily, though, honestly. GIMP doesn't have layers the right way. Anyway, what do you got?
So, we talked about the anime Keep Your Hands Off Aizoken. There's also a manga. It's great.
Yep.
And the opening song for that anime is Easy Breezy by, I don't know if it's chelmico or chelmico, but the group that made that song is called chelmico or chelmico because, right, one of the persons in that group is Rachel, right? And the other person in the group is Mamiko, right? So it's Rachel plus Mamiko is, I guess it must be Chel because it's Rachel, right? Chelmico, right? Anyway, if that's your, only exposure to that musical group, let me tell you, right? They are really something. And what's even more than them being really good at music is their music videos are like S-tier music videos. They're all have like these original, even the Easy Breezy one is like, it's really,
I gotta say, that is not the music video I expected to go to that song. That's
the Easy Breezy music video, I think goes along really well with the anime, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But they have a new music video. It came out like pretty recently, right? Like a couple weeks ago, I guess. Right? I don't know how recently was it.
YouTube video is April 29th.
Okay, sure. And the song is Meidaimae, right? I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. I don't know what the song's about.
I played it for a second and I had it muted, so I thought I had assumed this was a music video to Easy Breezy. I just saw the music video and I see that it is a different song.
No, Easy Breezy is a different music video.
I clicked around in the video and I saw the images from the music video and I thought, Easy Breezy, what? No, I see what's going on here.
This is their new song. This is not an old... Well, this isn't the newest song, right? I mean, I guess it's the newest music video, but I've been hearing this song on Spotify for at least a while, right? So it's not it's not like the song just dropped, right? But the music video just dropped. And the music video is extremely creative in that it's some sort of like parody of like, horror movies, right? And, the song has verses, right? And, verse, chorus kind of structure. And every time the song comes around to the next, verse, chorus, the music video sort of starts again. But this time plays out similarly but differently and sort of a time loop sort of thing going on while keeping the horror theme. And then on the final, I think it does it 2 or 3 times. And on the final one, obviously, it's very different, right? And that's, how stories are told. How good stories are told. So S-tier music video we got here. I looked up the music video director, and the only real information I could find about them was that they also were directing most of Kari Pamu's music videos. So this is like, very prolific, high quality Japanese music video director person. So if you aren't checking out chelmico, right? Their music and music videos are really good. Thing of the day worthy.
All right. In the meta moment, the Geek Nights Book Club book is Nine Fox Gambit. We're going to do the show within a month because I'm steamrolling through it. It's real good. It's dense sci-fi with abstract concepts and violent calendars.
Oh, the violent calendars have appeared.
Oh, the violent the violent calendars are referenced very early on, but I did not appreciate the extent of the violence of the calendars.
Yeah, calendars came up in like the first chapter, but you didn't realize the whole book was about calendars, right?
I sort of did.
The main focus of the book was calendars.
Yep. Well, yeah, it's this book is real good to me, but my advice to you, just like with the Prince of Nothing books, if there's too many proper nouns in a row, just go with it, and it'll make more and more sense if you just keep reading.
Mm-hmm.
But at least the characters are very straightforward in terms of who they are. compared to the Prince of Nothing books, where like one character has 10 different names depending on who's talking about them, and there were a few characters early on I didn't realize were the same character until later. I did not have that problem with this book. This book is just dense sci-fi, dense, abstract, and violent.
All right.
Definitely gonna read the rest of these books, I think.
In another meta moment, if you're somehow not aware, right, we have a presence in many online places, even places that we don't actually inhabit ourselves, right? We still have Geek Nights still has a page or an account or a something, right? It's like there's a Geek Nights Facebook page, and you know what? First, we had a feature that was automatically posting episodes there. Then it broke. Then I turned it off because it wasn't worth the effort. Well, then Facebook added a podcast feature. So I'm like, okay, why not? Here's our RSS feed, Facebook. Go ahead. Post our episodes on our page. Be my guest. Well, and now Facebook says, guess what? We're getting rid of the we failed at our podcast. we're giving up on that, right? Google style. And we're getting rid of that feature. And I'm like, okay. So if Facebook is how you follow Geek Nights,
I'm sorry.
You might want to change to something else. I'm not going to delete the page or my account, but I never use it. And I'm probably not going to go and do something about this for a very long time. It's like, it's on my list, but it's like the last item on the list, right?
Yeah.
We have an Instagram account. We don't use it really, right? Especially not without any conventions.
We got Twitter, which outside of conventions pretty much just tells you when episodes are happening.
Yeah. We got accounts all over, but the most interactive places, our most happening of all places, are our forum, which is on our website, the website is being redone. We're making a lot of progress imminently. And the forum, which is linked to the website, there's an old forum that's a read-only archive from back in the day, but there's a current forum, and there's also a Discord server that we have, right? So join those places if you want to interact with us. And you might see benefit from doing so. For example, the only listener, Dazzle369, I think is the numbers on there. Dazzle something. Dazzle369 gave us the idea for today's Thursday show. We had no fucking idea for today's Thursday show. We were probably close to bailing on it just because we didn't have an idea. And then we looked in our forum and we clicked on the ideas thread and we scrolled up. And in July of last year, Dazzle369 suggested to do a show on swimming and swimming pools. That is a show that we can do with no research. It is something that where we definitely have 20 to 30 minutes of material to discuss without preparation. And we have not done a show on that already. And therefore, it is prime material for a show. So now, that's what we're going to do.
We do have a plan for a future show while we're in the meta moment before we get into it. So I'm just going to ask all of you, if Scott and I were to, at some point in the nearing future, rewatch an old James Bond movie that we probably only saw on TV with ads as kids and have not watched since.
It might have been censored even, who knows?
Yep.
For TV, right?
Like what?
Ratioed for TV.
What James Bond movie would you want us to both watch with modern adult eyes and do a review of? I'm just curious if anyone has strong preferences there. Not even going to tell you which ones I've seen recently and which ones I haven't, because I'm just curious which ones you recommend. We did a show on James Bond
show recently.
We did. So you can get a sense of our sensibilities around James Bond. You know that I'm a big Daniel Craig fan, and it's not going to be one of those because I've seen all of those, and with, I guess, 2 of them are great.
Anyway.
Maybe 3.
Right, let's talk about swimming and swimming pools. So I lived a very swim privileged youth.
Oh, same. White, middle class, living in a suburb. We both had a very similar upbringing in this regard.
There was I guess I was born in New York City, but then, I guess then my parents, we moved to Connecticut, but then this, the house we moved into after, like when I was, I guess maybe 2 or 3, is still the house my mom lives in today. And that house had an above ground pool in it when we moved into it. And that pool was not torn down until after the children had gone to college and such, and no one was using it anymore, and it was just a pain in the ass to maintain, and it was taking up space in the backyard. So
when I was a kid, very young kid.
In addition to that pool that was in our own backyard, we would frequently in the summer, right, go to the town public pool that you could only park your car at if you had a sticker that proved you lived in the town and you had a driver's license that indicated you lived in the town. And the town we lived in, the suburban town, had like 2 or 3 such public pools to go to. And on top of that, right, the town also had a lake that nowadays you can't swim in that lake anymore. But you could when I was a kid.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. And then, well, I think it got overrun by algae and, all kinds of things.
Climate change.
Yeah. And then on top of all that, I frequently attended summer camps and various summer programs and went on vacations to beaches and things of that nature. And it's like you go to a summer camp, it's like you're swimming every day.
Yep.
Right? It's like even if you went to summer camp at the YMCA, at the Jewish Community Center in town, it's like swimming was a daily activity there, right? For everybody.
So my upbringing similar, but we were, in Detroit, we did not have a pool because our backyard was about the size of the room I'm recording Geek Nights in right now. Like it was a tiny house in Detroit. In fact, it was so tiny there was no grass; it was pea gravel. When we moved to the suburbs, one of the first things my parents saved up for, and it was a big goddamn deal, we got a small above ground pool, but one of those ones that has like the metal sides, like a really, really like built up one. And we were obsessed with it. We swam in it all the time, but it wasn't really a pool you could swim in. It was just like a kid jump around, splash with your friends pool.
Ours was the same kind of construction as that. It was 4 feet deep metal sides, right?
Yep.
But you could swim in it like around in a circle, right? But mostly what I would do is come home from school or whatever.
Just jump in, splash. Yep, splash and float. Yeah. Play tag.
You get super soaker battles in there.
Oh, yeah.
Pool basketball.
We would jump off the garage into it when our parents weren't watching.
It wasn't ours wasn't close enough to the house for jumping, but our a family friend's house, they also had a similar pool, and they had one of those decks, those porches, because it was one of those right, the houses that were like the land they were on was high in the front and sloped downwards in the back, so the porch was even though it was at the same level as the first floor, it was like a ranch with a basement. The basement was just like in the back of the house. It's just you could just walk right out, right? Straight with a normal door. And the porch was above that. So in the backyard, the porch was real high up, and they basically had the porch. They built it outwards to go down to the pool, so you could get to the pool without having to go onto the ground. And then that provided many opportunities for jumping in.
We had nothing like that because it wasn't really the burbs yet.
Many opportunities for jumping into that pool.
This was actually like one of those old brick row houses like in the outer rings around Detroit, like in Grosse Pointe Park, like that kind of place. So the pool was illegal because it was too close to the garage. It was too close to the house. It was too close to the property. Every side of this thing was illegal in some fashion. But who was going to do anything about it? So, but most of my swimming was another thing that white middle-class kids, especially in the Midwest, do is get swimming lessons. A lot of schools just have pools, and it's just a class. Sometimes it's not even optional. Like you're forced to take
we had
it.
Swimming lessons so many times, right?
Yep.
Not only did we have
my whole childhood, we would go
swimming lessons at the public pool, swimming lessons at the summer camp, swimming lessons, right? It's like
swimming lessons at the Y. I learned like full formal swimming. We had to do races in the classes. Like I know a bunch of strokes. Like swimming was just this assumed thing, and being a privileged middle-class white kid at the time, I didn't realize that not everyone learns how to swim when I was a kid. I just assumed that everyone knew how to swim, and I remember I was
getting swimming lessons with all the kids I knew.
Yep.
So I'm like, I didn't feel like anyone wasn't getting them, but actually, no, a lot of people just, it's like, wait a minute, now that I think about it, it's like, yeah, there were this many kids in school, but when I went to the public pool, only some percentage of those kids were coming to the pool. The rest of them were somewhere else.
Yep. And and it wasn't until middle school when I went to some friend's house, because they had an in-ground pool. Like they were the richest people I could imagine when I was in middle school. So, they just had a nice house, but they had a smallish in-ground pool. And I remember going to a birthday party at this house in like 6th grade, and a bunch of the kids like wouldn't get in the pool because it had a deep end. They just like would not get in. And I started to realize really quickly that a lot of those kids like just couldn't, like if you threw them in, they would just sink to the bottom and die. Like they could not even keep their head above water if they were in water.
Fences around pools because people die.
Yeah. And in my subdivision, multiple kids died because they would break into other families' houses. Like they'd break into other families' backyards, swim in the pool and drown. That happened multiple times when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And the homeowners got sued because, anyway, that's a whole separate conversation. But that was the moment that was one of the first times I started to internalize how radically different some aspects of my childhood were from the average childhood in America.
Yeah. I mean, the answer, right? And then we can just talk about water anecdotes after this, right? But the answer is that obviously swimming lessons should be as mandatory as math lessons for all humans in the society, right?
Every public school should have enough money to have a pool. If a public school can't afford a pool, we're not putting enough money into that public school.
Or you could take the kids to the town pool or whatever, right? It's like, it doesn't matter. Your town, there should be a pool close enough to where everyone has pool access no matter where they live, right? As long as it's not in a drought place where that's a waste of water. But it's like, most of the earth is covered in water. Unless you live in Oklahoma, it's like, never leave. In your life, you are likely to encounter a body of water, right? Intentionally or unintentionally. And it's like, since I left, the suburbs and went to college, the swimming opportunities have been much less. It's pretty much like when I can go to the beach, and that's it.
Oh yeah, watch me or Scott swimming today. Our form is atrocious. Our speed is low.
Yeah, I pretty much swim at the beach in a relaxing swim to stay afloat and not die, and that's the level of swim I have now, right? But it's like, I don't drown if I go in the water. Right?
But also, honestly,
if I fell off a boat and I didn't, and it wasn't like a mega boat where I die hitting the water or something, right? It's like I could probably, like if I fell out of a rowboat or a kayak, I could get back in.
Or in the very least, you could tread water until you got help.
Or I could, if I can't get back in the boat, I could get near it and hold on to it.
Yep. I think any, like you, me, Emily, like we could all, if we had to, we could probably swim across the East River. Like if there's not that I want to.
The distance, I think I could make it with difficulty. I think the problem is that depending on, assuming that where you land on either side, you is like,
Oh, it has to. I'm assuming I'm going to be way downstream.
Yeah, it's not flat wall, and then the current. If I tried to swim across the East River from where I live in Queens, I'd be lucky if I didn't go past the bottom of Manhattan by the time I got across, right? It's
but in terms of the distance, I think you could do it.
If I don't make it to the Battery, it's like I can't make it to Jersey. It's like then I'd be screwed. Maybe it would push me to Staten Island. There is a beach there.
Well, one thing though that I think a lot of people don't super realize is swimming fast takes a lot of practice and skill and physicality, and it's really good exercise, and it's hard. But knowing how to swim enough to tread water, not drown, and slowly make your way in a particular direction, that is one day's worth of instruction. It is not hard.
Depends on the person.
Yeah, unless there's something in your way.
Some people have aquaphobia, right? They get issues. Some people's bodies are different.
But if there's nothing physical preventing you from doing it, and there's nothing psychological or otherwise preventing you from doing it, reasonably healthy, reasonably fit, the motions, like the mechanics of it, pretty much just come down to you're sort of moving your arms left and right when angling your hands, and that's pushing water down, keeping you up, and your legs, you're just kind of kicking them. Just kick them a little bit, and that'll keep your head above water. Right.
It's like, it's the thing is, right, is every human who has legs that work, learns to walk, right? Somewhat sort of without really even any instruction so much. Horses come out walking immediately.
But human babies also come out naturally being able to swim. Like they will kind of just swim. They'll keep their heads above water. When they get older, they lose that.
Right. But this swimming, we need swimming lessons because you're not swimming constantly,
Nope.
right? You're not in the water every day unless you live in like a fishing village or something, right? Where you probably don't need swimming lessons.
But also the mechanics of swimming with speed are not actually intuitive to just a human who doesn't have specialized knowledge.
Right, but the thing is, swimming with speed is like running, right? It's like you don't need to do that actually, right? It's like the kind of swimming lessons you got are basically teaching you to walk in the right. It's like walk in water, not on water, like Jesus in water.
I mean, we went from basically walking to running.
If you are in a body of water, submerged and not holding on to any objects, and you're not near any surface, can you move around according to your will at any speed, right? Walking in in water, right? That's the kind of swimming that everyone needs to learn.
Yep. I mean, I can do like most of the basic front strokes. I can do the backstroke really easily. I can do a really shitty looking breaststroke, but like it works. Dog paddle, of course.
Yeah, that's dog paddle's enough.
Yeah.
Just can you get in a body of water and enjoy it and not die?
But as a kid,
danger to yourself and others.
When I think back to my young childhood, like kindergarten, early to mid elementary school, video games were a big part of my life, obviously. Anime was a big part of my life at that time, obviously, like later, like as well, like 4th grade onward. But the two things that I was three things that I was sort of the most obsessed with, as in activities I wanted to do every day, but could not do every day, were in order. 1, ride roller coasters. 2, be in a big pool with a deep end. Those.
That's the thing is, like, if I think about, what was I interested in when I was, at any age, right? What were my hobbies and primary interests? Swimming never makes the list ever, right? It's like, what do I care most about?
It wasn't a hobby. It was more like I want to be in a deep pool because there's lots of fun things I can do in a pool.
Swimming was never the primary interest. Even if you asked me at the time I was swimming the most, like what my favorite thing was, like video games, is like swimming would never come up, right? But if you had asked me, what would you like to do right now, right? And swimming in the pool was an option, it would frequently make the top of the list.
When we had an above ground pool, as small and crappy as it was, every single day after school, I would come home and just like put on my swimsuit and jump in the pool, like immediately.
Yep.
On the weekend, Saturday morning.
Get home from school. Is the pool open? Is the pool ready? Is the weather good? I'm going to be in the pool until dinner time and possibly after dinner time.
Yep. My friends might just show up and get in the pool with me, and we're going to play tag in the pool. Saturday morning.
In the neighborhood. Hey, who wants to come in the pool?
Yep. Saturday morning, I'd eat my Frosted Flakes. I'd watch some cartoons.
Open.
And I would be watching out the window, watching to wait for my dad to get up, go outside, and do the pH test and the chlorine stuff, and come back in and say, it's okay to go in the pool, and I would drop everything and go jump in the pool.
Did that all myself.
I started doing that when I was older, but our parents did it when I was in like 1st grade.
All right. So anecdotes of things that happened while swimming. So at the town pool, right? The town pool that we had was an L-shaped pool.
Oh,
right?
fancy.
The long part of the L had obviously lanes, right? And then the curved part was like a little square, right? And it got deeper as it went. As the long part, the shallowest part was the farthest away from the square, right? As you went down the lane, it got deeper. But in the square, right, there was a rope separating the square of the L from the long part of the L. That was the mega deep end, right? Like, like way deep, right? And that was basically the diving area. There was a regular old springboard, like you do, right?
Oh, did you have an actual high dive?
And then there was the high dive.
I assume it's liability reasons why those are gone, but as a kid, diving was my favorite thing, and that's why I was so obsessed with the deep pools, because I couldn't dive at home. That would literally kill me.
Yep. And then there was the high dive. So,
Did you ever jump off it?
At the time that the high dive was in operation, I was not yet old enough to go on the high dive.
Oh, I went up there when I wasn't supposed to and I cannonballed right off of that thing before anyone could stop me as a kid.
I was still doing the low dive. I was not allowed to do the high dive. But at this time that the high dive still existed, the pool was like super popular, right? And all kinds of people, it was busy. There was a kiddie pool off to the side also, but it was popular and busy, right? And the funnest times were, you think when they call Adult Swim, that's not the fun time when you're a kid, because that means get out of the pool, right? But actually, the pool was so busy and popular that during Adult Swim, the kids would go to the deep end diving pool area, and we'd sit on the edge of the pool with our feet in the water, right, next to the high dive. And basically, all the biggest dudes in town would come and cannonball.
Yep.
Cannonball contest like every day in the summer, right? And we'll be all like, get us wet. Even though they were diving so far away from us,
Yeah.
right? We would get mighty wet from these kids. It was, but then over time it was sad because the high dive went away and was replaced with a second low dive.
Yep. So I found a whole bunch of articles talking about, a lot of people asked this question. Why did all the high dives disappear? What the fuck? They were in every pool when I was a kid, and now they're all gone.
People got hurt.
Actually, no. That doesn't seem to be the main reason. People were not getting hurt at a high rate.
I mean, I never saw anyone get hurt, but I assumed there was liability reasons and people were getting hurt.
So it seems like they're actually very safe. And most of the reason they went away was a fear of people getting hurt that was mostly unfounded.
Uh-huh. Anyway.
The other part of it is that new safety regulations came in place in a lot of places where insurers would say, oh, if you got a high dive, you can't just have a teenager as your lifeguard. You need a certified diving instructor. And every pool said, well, fuck that. I'm not paying more than minimum wage.
Yep.
Even though it's kind of hard to hurt yourself off a high dive if you're the kind of person who would jump off a high dive in the first place.
I mean, the real danger of the high dive is, besides the drowning, if you can't swim, or maybe...
Oh, you're landing on someone because kids are fucking around under it.
Right. Landing on someone, somehow, the dive causes you to lose consciousness or get disoriented, and then you drown. Or hitting the board itself, right, with your jump is the other major danger. Or slipping and falling off of the board, like sideways or something.
I did see a lot of people fuck up on the board.
So far into the water, and the water is so deep.
You still just fall straight down.
You're not gonna hit the concrete, when you fall off. So
Olympic coaches are actually, I found an article on WAPO talking about this. They're all kind of mad, and there's a bunch of anecdotes of them saying, yeah, it really hurt diving as a sport because when the high dives disappeared, nobody got interested in diving.
Or we couldn't find any divers.
Yep, and low dives also mostly disappeared.
I assumed that the high dives are removed from the public pools, but I assumed that like people who are swimming seriously for sport.
Oh yeah,
those pools still have all kinds of dives, the mega high dives.
It seems like it was more that it meant most people never encountered a high dive and thus didn't think about it and didn't like try to learn how to dive.
But you're a kid who goes to a swim meet, you're going to see one. You're going to say, you know what? Maybe I'll try that instead of swimming back and forth.
True. The kid who's going to the swim meet probably already.
If I had ever, done competitive swimming, which I never did even one time ever, right? I probably would have chosen the diving over the swimming back and forth.
As a kid, when I got to a pool that had diving boards, all I would do is dive over and over again until my parents said we had to go. Like that was what I would do. I actually was pretty good at diving too.
Roller coaster adjacent. I would just do cannonballs. I wasn't trying to dive correctly.
Well, I had a lot of goals. I would have tried to dive and touch the bottom with my hand and then swim back up. Or I would try to dive.
We'd do that.
Dive and swim as far as I could. I never did.
We would throw things into the pool that sank to the bottom, and then you would dive at the same time and try to grab. This is when there were two low dives because it would obviously not work if one was high, one was low, right? So you'd both be standing on the low dive. Someone on the side would throw something, right? And then you would both jump and see who came out with it. Like if you didn't get it on its way down, you'd have to come back up for air and dive again to go to the bottom and get it. So.
But to use a diving board correctly does require a tiny amount of instruction because there is a specific technique to a springy diving board, and most of the people who fall off of it don't realize that.
Well, I think you don't need much technique if your technique is stand at the end
and go whoop up and jump.
Yeah, right. But
if you're gonna dive head first, or you're gonna take a step and jump, you gotta learn a tiny bit.
Well, I think it was, when I would do it, I would think about it in sort of a video game sort of way, and that like I'm running and I need to jump like Mario and I need to land exactly on that spot at the end, right? So it's like it was about timing and spacing out the one jump so that I would land in the right spot. And then once I landed in the right spot, like the rest is sort of automatic, right? It's like it springs you into the air and you go in the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The coach is saying here the big problem is nobody gets the 3-meter training or the experience with it when they're very young. So they first encounter it when they're older. And that seems to have impacted the skill development of divers.
Listener from other country, tell us if your not United States country still has high dives at the public town pools and such.
Yeah, I'm really curious because everything I'm reading, digging around a ton of articles, people were not getting hurt on these things.
Anyway,
the listener, actually, it is Dazzle369 in the chat. What about pool toys?
Oh,
we'll end on pool toys.
I had noodle was invented in my lifetime.
Yeah, we did not have pool toys.
I remember a time where our pool did not have noodles.
Nope.
And then they invented the pool noodle, and then we had many.
So we had the toys of dive in and get stuff off the bottom, like we talked about. But the favorite toys were the inner tubes and the giant alligator with the handles on it.
You mean shark with handles on it?
Alligator was way better because it was flatter.
Animal with handles on it.
Pretty much. We would play tag of multiple alligators, and you're trying to like tag people and jump across them and not fall in the water. We just throw rocks at each other from the alligators.
I already mentioned the basketball and pool basketball, right?
Yep.
We didn't have a water polo setup or a pool volleyball setup, but some people did.
One of my favorite things to do with Cub Scouts was to go to the Days Inn, because you could just rent the pools out at them and play water volleyball. Actually, water volleyball is a super fun sport.
Have like a racket club or, something like that.
Yep.
And those places will often have pools with like, water polo,
Pretty much every YMCA has a water volleyball setup too.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a real fun sport.
Yeah, it's good. I know a lot of old people that play it and they just sort of play it casually. Like, the same way that like old people are playing pickleball these days. And
sometimes I remember one Days In, they had it set up where one side was just in the deep end. So basically, that was how you could get little kids like us to play against adults, is the adults will all have to tread water in the deep end, and the kids are just like in the shallow end.
Mm. But yeah, other pool toys besides, the Super Soaker really was more of a pool, like as much of a pool toy as it was an outside.
Oh yeah, it was. We just have them floating around in the pool with us sometimes.
You had the little kickboards. Kickboards are fun.
Yep.
Mostly instructional, right? They're still fun.
One
kickboard is just like, my arms, they can rest.
For an above ground pool, I think a very common activity was using the pool itself as a toy. And what we'd always do is we'd get a bunch of kids in the pool and start walking around the edge until we got a whirlpool going.
I forgot all about that.
Right?
Yes, we did that too.
And you could actually, like, if you've never done that, even in a tiny little kid's pool.
I could do it just by myself. I would run around the pool in a circle and then turn around and you try to fight against it.
Yep. Or you just ride it around on the alligator.
Whee!
But
I forgot all about that, but we did that a lot, yeah.
It was surprising how big of a whirlpool you could get going with a bunch of kids in a little pool if you worked at it.
Yeah, you could definitely get a Odyssean level whirlpool.
Skill is there in the middle and Charybdis.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've gone on way longer than we probably needed to. This is what happens when we don't do Geek Nights that reliably, and we don't really see each other that much except during Geek Nights. So
yeah, it's getting warm here. I'm gonna start doing some biking imminently outside. I've been doing inside biking this whole time.
And no specific promises because I'm not going to shit talk, but it is likely we will make some form of content, maybe even some Geek Nights episodes, on location outside, because why not? Even if it's just regular Geek Nights, but we're sitting outside somewhere.
Yeah, who knows?
That's only exciting to us, not to the listener, obviously.
I hope that we can, I have more swimming opportunities in the rest of my life.
I'm looking into that for some private events just for us to go swimming. But
the amount of money it costs to live in a place in New York City with a pool.
Yep.
Large.
So
there is a there's a public pool here, which I've been to 1 or 2 times, and I could go to it, especially not with the work from home. It would be much more convenient to go to that public pool, right? And avoid too many children. The problem being the COVID.
Yep. Or
if I was working from home without the COVID, the public pool would be like,
the fancier buildings that have about literally double the rent that we pay down the road.
They have these shitty, tiny, useless pools.
One of those buildings has a full-size 2-lane lap pool and a saltwater pool.
Yeah, but the 2-lane lap pool, those are like dinky little pools. I need an Olympic-sized pool, right?
No, I actually, as a workout, I actually want a lap pool because the thing I'm most interested in, because I'm not going to get a diving pool on the roof of a residential building. That's not feasible. But what I could do is start swimming laps as exercise. That is, if you think running or biking is good cardio, go do more than 1 lap in a lap pool and tell me how hard that is.
Yeah. I'm not interested in that.
I am very interested in that.
Ride on the alligator and make a whirlpool and play a water volleyball.
If we do a close friends Airbnb somewhere during these COVID times, we'll see if there's a place that has a private pool.
That's not a bad idea. It's like at first we were thinking beach, then we were thinking lake, but you know what? You can get a pretty much anywhere as long as it has a pool.
Yeah, like rent out a house that just has a big pool in the backyard.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking into, because I got to tell you, stuff like that, way cheaper than the very limited number of beach houses that can sleep that many people.
Yeah. All right. The end.
We went an hour. We went a while. That was a long